Hey, it's Les from the TV Dudes. Recently, I was lucky enough to talk with writer, actor, and comedian Drew Droege. Drew appeared on the third season of HBO's Search Party, was also recently a writer for AJ and the Queen over on Netflix. Today we talk about his hit play Happy Birthday Doug, which was recently released as a film on the new streaming service BroadwayHD. That film was directed by Jim Henson, who worked with Drew on a series of YouTube videos, and we discuss his path from that to television and a whole lot more. It's a fun interview, and I hope you enjoy.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Hey, going great. Thank you so much for making time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for calling. Thanks a lot.
So I was in the middle of watching or rewatching part of Happy Birthday Doug right before calling you. And of course, I spent the weekend cracking myself up with Chloe videos.
Thank you.
I'm 42 and was exactly, I think, the right age for the start of her career. I was working at a bookstore.
I'm 43, so we're the same. Yeah, exactly.
I was swiping copies of Paper Mag and trying to figure out who this weird girl in Kids was. And
yes, right?
So
imagine looking in the mirror one day and going, oh my God, I kind of look like her. What's going on?
The entire shtick. Can you talk a little bit about? I remember seeing an interview once with Dana Carvey about how Lorne Michaels became Dr. Evil. Like it was a Lorne Michaels impression that just went too far.
Right. Sure.
Can you talk a little bit about workshopping those videos, working with Jim, working with the director who eventually would direct Happy Birthday Doug,
yes.
And getting into all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's so long ago, but in 2002, I was seeing these. Well, first of all, I was in a sketch comedy show, and everyone was doing, all these different characters, but a lot of people were doing impressions, and I really don't do impressions. I still don't even call my Chloe really an impression of her, as much as kind of a bizarro character, alternate universe, Chloe 70. But I put on a blonde wig for something else, and I looked in the mirror, and I was like, who do I look like? And it took me a while to realize that I looked like Chloe 70. And I had, around the same time, I had read an interview with her where she was just name-dropping the most hyper-specific, references from literature to DJs to food it was just high culture, low culture, everything. It was just, her world was fascinating to me. And, so it was also at the same time, tell you again how long ago it was, when a lot of celebrities were doing ads for the city of New York because it was after 9/11 and they were trying to get people to come back to New York and visit, feel safe. And so I thought, what would Chloe 70's New York commercial look like? And she would just be telling, middle America to come to these really bizarre underground clubs and hang out with Tilda Swinton and DJ Kioki. And so that's where the idea came from, and I would do it on stage. And so that's where Good Evening America came from, because I was kind of doing it as if she felt like she could talk to all Americans on the same level, and that everyone would understand immediately when she's name-checking. So I did it on stage, and it bombed horrifically. No one laughed. It was awful. And then for some reason, I kind of kept doing it and trying it different places. And some nights it would go well, and some nights it would just be terrible. And so I never knew for years how it would go. And then Jim Henson, actually, this is also really crazy to bring it up to now. A friend of mine asked me to do Chloe at his birthday party. So I was at a birthday party playing Chloe 70, and and Jim saw it and just came up to me and said, these need to be videos. He saw immediately what they would look like on, in that format. And I resisted it forever. I said, this isn't what I do. I'm not a drag queen. I don't really want to do this. He basically made me do it. And then we put them up. And for a few months, they kind of, tinkered around on YouTube. And then all of a sudden, one day, they blew up. And it was like everywhere, life-changing. And Jim has always had that eye with me and my work. I mean, we are really good friends, but there's something happening on another level. He sees what I do, and he does this with a lot of people. He's a lot of comedian, actor friends of his. He knows exactly how to showcase them. And a few years later, he made a film with our friend Jeffrey Self. We did a film called You're Killing Me that they wrote for all of us. And people, when they saw the movie, they were like, did you guys just improvise? And I was like, we didn't improvise any of that movie. It was all, it was written so well in our voices that it looks like we were just speaking, and so, when I was doing Happy Birthday Doug on stage, I never really thought what it would look like as a film, or I thought like, okay, well, if we turn this into a TV show, I could play multiple characters with other actors, and flesh these worlds out. But when we were in pandemic times and we knew we couldn't do it like that, and we had to film it without even an audience there, I knew exactly who to ask. And Jim had just a vision to know how to make it make sense in this format. And now, I mean, our shorthand is pretty crazy. Like we work together really fast because I know exactly what he wants and he knows what I'm gonna give. And we shot that whole film, Happy Birthday Doug, very quickly. And because he just knew like every take when he got what he wanted, we moved on to the next thing. So I hope we have that relationship for forever, because he just always elevates everything I put out there.
When you'd said earlier that people watched the stage show or that people watched the movie rather and were like, did you improvise this whole thing? That's exactly the vibe that Happy Birthday Doug gives off as well. Of listening to this and going,
wonderful.
Like, did you record part of my Zoom call with friends yesterday, or how did this happen? But it's absolutely wonderful. All the asides, all the little drops. Can you talk a little bit about? You'd said earlier, going on stage and watching something bomb. Oftentimes, it takes some workshopping to figure out: is this the audience? Is this how people should watch it? Do people want to laugh at this alone? Do they want to hear a crowd? Which jokes land? How did you tighten up a script like this?
Yeah, I mean, I did it. I stupidly put the whole thing up without workshopping any of it the very first night, and I in front of like 200 people at Dynasty Typewriter, which was I don't recommend, just because I was so nervous. I don't even remember how it went the first night, because I couldn't believe that I was putting up an hour of 9 characters that I had never done. But it did, we did it a couple times, and we did record it and kind of go back. And I just could sort of pluck with my own material. I've gotten pretty good at kind of knowing, like, okay, this is working. Oh, this is really not working. I got to work on this. I got to flesh this out more. I've got to cut things here. But it does require a few audiences. I also, I had Tom DeTrinis, who's an incredible director and also another dear friend. So he had no problem just telling me all of those things in rehearsal. He watched me do it, probably 15 times before any audience ever saw it. And he was just a great barometer of, I knew when I made him laugh, and he wouldn't just give it to me. There are other times he's like, this isn't really working. Maybe move this around. And, but I just, I wanted to write about my world, and I'm really interested in the way gay friends interact with each other, the way we talk to each other, because I don't always see it. And I grew up, reading the Boys in the Band and Love, Valor, Compassion, all these brilliant, amazing cornerstone plays that I loved. But I also noticed that, like, gay men talk to each other a little bit differently now, in a way that's like, and that I'm interested in sort of capturing that. Or just at least the way my friends and I talk to each other, because I can't speak on behalf of all gay people, of course, but just like, in the world that that we're in. And so like that's kind of what I wanted to sort of zero in on, the different types of guys that I knew. And I wanted to make it specifically like, I didn't want it to feel like a sketch parade or like at my SNL audition or something where I'm playing a bunch of all the different characters I have in my wheelhouse. I wanted to make it specific to the fact that we all are a lot more similar than we are different. And so I was sort of, it was a weird sort of hat trick that I was trying to pull off with Tom, where I was kind of being like, I want some of these characters to bleed over a little bit because I think it's okay. I think it's like they would be in the same world. So, I do want to differentiate all the characters and, so they don't go, oh, that person's just like this other person. But I didn't also want to make it like, a bunch of wigs and glasses and transformation and doing all this kind of stuff. Because it's like, I didn't really want it to look actor showcasey in that way, as much as showing like a sort of a common voice and a commonality in tone.
Well, and if it were characters you knew from across your life or across decades or your family history, a one-man show, one-person show like that, it would make more sense to fully differentiate them. But these are all people that could be at one party.
Right. Exactly.
And, so to me, it made sense that they not be, why this wasn't assembled at random, and then invited up for drinks.
Right.
These folks know each other. You had said earlier not feeling or not thinking of yourself particularly as a drag queen, despite doing the Chloe character. But then did that feeling come up or come into play working on AJ and the Queen with RuPaul? I mean, you for not being a drag queen, you've had more direct experience with RuPaul.
Oh wait, no. I would say if I ever wrote, an autobiography, it would be called The Accidental Drag Queen, because I love playing women, and I just look at the character and the point of view, and I always think that gender is sort of, it's definitely important, but it's not what I'm ever really playing or aiming for, and the gender is never the joke of the character, and that's why I think it does differentiate when like, are you, to get into all that. But I mean, it's like, you don't ever want to be laughing at or punching down as the actor. So I've always been like, oh, I'm playing a woman. Great. I will figure out this character and go from there versus the other thing. But yeah, I mean, I've written, I've worked with a lot of drag queens. I love drag queens, and I love the world. When I say I'm not a drag queen, I say that with respect to drag queens, because it's like, I do a Golden Girls show in LA where we do episodes of the Golden Girls, and I work with Jackie Beat and Sherry Vine, who are real drag queens, who are brilliant and are fully painted and embody these like alter egos. And then Sam Pancake and I are also in it, and we're more in the world of, we call ourselves booger queens. Like we're the actors who are playing women. It's sort of a different approach, but it works when the four of us are on stage together. So like, getting to work with Rue on Drag Race, it was I guess sort of this a similar thing. Like, I know enough about the world of drag, and I work in that world, and I have so much respect for that world and admiration for that world that I say I wouldn't even know what to do. Like, I mean, in terms of like, I don't know how to paint my face like that. I don't know how to sew. I don't have an alter ego when I'm in drag. I'll try to be like the actor. So I just approach it differently. But I love, obviously, like being in that world, and I'm always happy to be next to that or be in that in any way that I can, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. One thing that I think when we all saw Hamilton, finally the whole country got to see Hamilton just recently on Disney streaming, I think a lot of us sat back and went, why don't I have more plays filmed and sent to me like this?
Right.
And so I know we've got a streaming service basically dropping for that coming up, or rather just dropped, I should say, BroadwayHD. And of course, that's where folks can go watch Happy Birthday, Doug here. Can you talk a little bit about how you got into live theater?
Yeah, I mean, I moved to LA over 20 years ago, and I came up in the Groundlings sketch and improv theater, And I just was always working and doing live comedy for years and years and trying out new stuff. And it took a long time, and probably 10 years before I ever got a single TV job. And then I spent years, getting a couple lines on TV shows, and still so I just always developed my most interesting work on stage because I was given the freedom to do that and the showcase to do that. And so when I'm even developing my most recent solo shows like Bright Colors and Bold Patterns and Happy Birthday Doug, I very much write for the stage, and I think about what works in the theater because I understand that world so much better. And then if and when you take it to film and TV, you have to think of so many other elements that I don't feel as connected to in a way because it's not really my roots. And I mean, before that, I was doing community theater in the 90s in North Carolina, so I've always was just like I've understood that medium. And I remember watching Sunday in the Park with George on PBS, and they filmed it with Mandy Patinkin and Burnett Peters, and I was like so in love with that show, and it was like it changed my life in so many ways. But still, I felt disconnected because of the technology, because I still felt like it doesn't feel like I was in that theater watching that, and they could not have been better. It couldn't have been a more perfect production or play. But for years, you watch film theater and you just go, oh, it just doesn't feel the same.
Yeah.
And Broadway HD found a way to make you feel like you're sitting in a theater and watching. And a lot of it is just just that technology has just gotten so much better. But they just really they so appreciate the art form of theater. They never make you feel like you're watching a comedy special or a TV show. They make you feel like you're sitting in a dark theater watching an evening of theater. So how many times can I say theater in one sentence? But you know what I mean? It's like they make you feel that experience. And so when they came to me with Bright Colors and Bold Patterns to film that, and I saw a couple of things that they did, I felt so taken care of immediately. Like they're going to trust what I wrote, and they're not going to try to change it. They're not going to try to make it feel like my stand-up show. And they don't add laughter. They don't cut to you backstage getting ready or cut to you from the wings, that you would do in a comedy show. They make you feel like you're there watching.
I didn't think about that, but you really could just direct that like a stand-up special. And it wouldn't exactly not work, but it certainly wouldn't be the play.
Right. And I wouldn't, but I know that when we were really watching the edit of Bright Colors, and there was a question about, there was a line early in the show that normally got a much bigger laugh than it does, than it did on the night that we were filming it for Broadway HD, and someone suggested adding laughter there, and they were like, "We don't do that. We will not do that."
That's great.
That was the laugh that was earned by that audience in that moment. And if you start doing that, the audience watching it at home will feel cheated.
Yeah.
Subconsciously, they'll feel like you're telling me when to laugh.
Yeah, if I feel played at home, it's going to go wrong.
And it's like, Drew, you weren't that funny that night to that audience in that moment, or they were thinking about something else.
And we've captured it for all time.
Exactly. So, but it also, I think it really, because I've watched that one, I've watched Bright Colors with another audience watching me in front of that audience. So we've screened that transfer in front of other audiences. And that's this crazy feeling of watching it with basically two audiences. And I feel like it works really well that way because it lets the audience currently watching it have their experience with it, and it doesn't the audience that's filmed with me doesn't overpower the experience.
Yeah.
And so with Happy Birthday Doug, we just knew, as we filmed it, we filmed it in quarantine without an audience, and so I had to change a lot of it in terms of how I played it, because things that I would play to the audience that would work. I mean, the very first character I played in it, Jason, is so over the top. He takes over the room, and that's the point of him. He's the first one to make a beeline for you at the party. He wasn't even invited to the party, and he takes the longest. He gives the longest, speech in the whole show, and he's a mess. And he's talking about how centered and grounded he is and how present he is. And he's the most unpresent. He talks about how sober he is and he's wasted. He's like, and, but when I did it on film for the first time, and Jim and I looked at it, it felt too much. It felt too broad. And it was like, would people just turn this off and think it's going to be a whole night of cloying? And so it sort of was like, oh, I can do so much less because I'm playing it for the camera without an audience reacting to that. And so, we had to sort of tinker with it in that way. And so I wasn't sure BroadwayHD would be interested in this format because but they came in and they were like, they had come and seen it live, and they were really supportive. And I think also to your point about like with Hamilton, like audiences really just need content right now. They want things in different formats. They're able to accept the constraints that we all have had. I mean, now we're seeing Meryl Streep in a Zoom, and we're seeing what her kitchen looks like, and and we're seeing, other movie stars have dirty laundry behind them or whatever, and you're like, that's the world that we're all in right now, and there's something deeply connected about that. We've never felt so connected in a way.
I've seen so many table reads recently. It's wonderful.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, and I think you're right. People are willing to accept. I mean, we've seen it in business where, I guess this could have been an email or a Zoom meeting, couldn't it? People are willing to accept tech constraints now that, even if the tech existed last year, they were like, oh, no, I don't think a Zoom call would work. Well, clearly it would have. So, yeah, I think now we're getting to see a lot more fun stuff and accepting it. But also, yeah, there's just a real dearth of content coming if we don't manage to get this back under control soon. I was just thinking it'd be a great YouTube channel to just have your reactions to making you watch other people watching your stage play.
Oh my God, it's murder.
I cannot imagine.
I know. I hate watching. I hate watching myself, but it's even harder when you have to watch yourself perform in front of an audience that's already, and it's so many levels of cringe.
It just meta cringe. Well, thank you so much for taking time to talk to me about it all today.
Oh, thank you so much. I love chatting. Thanks for watching and supporting and calling and doing the interview.
Of course, we didn't even talk about Search Party or your upcoming Charlie Day film. I was looking through my notes at the start of this going, I have no idea how I'm going to organize this through 15 minutes. And I didn't. God. We went 20. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, have a great rest of your day. Bye.
Thank you. You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
TV Dudes is an independently run podcast out of Austin, Texas. We are exclusively listener supported. If you'd like to help us out, go to patreon.com/TVDudes.
You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TV Dudes. All the music for our show is done by our friend and original TV Dude, Gregory J. Amani Smith.
To find out more about us, go to thetvdudes.com. I'm Randy Lander.
I'm Les Weiler.
And I'm Kyle Scott.
Thanks for listening.